Hello! Okay, so we haven't done as many Clovis videos as I'd have liked, but hopefully we can get more done in the next few days. It's Bank Holiday Friday today, and I had hoped to do a few more videos, but I think I'm just going to have to make do with this one. Now, I'm Clemency Crow from Clovis Team, and today I am sharing with you my tips on how to run a writing competition. Now, I'm doing this because we have just launched our 4th annual ghost story competition at Clovis, and we love doing it. I love reading the entries at the end of the year. I don't really like picking my favourites because it's too hard, but I really love reading everybody's hard work. So I would recommend that if you are at all interested in running a writing competition, then you do think seriously about doing it. Now, I'll post our website in the comments in the description below for you to have a look if you're interested in entering our competition. It is a ghost story competition for 4,000 words, I think, is the maximum. And I love reading ghost stories and I love writing them, so I hope you do too. So my tips for running a writing competition. Now, the first thing you need to think about is why you want to run one. And you've got to have a good reason, because it's a lot of work and you've got to have that goal set in your mind. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know about the other members of the Clovis team. As far as I'm concerned, there are 2 reasons that we run a writing competition. One is very virtuous, the other one is very business-minded. So we'll do the virtuous one first. The writing community is amazing, and there's a lot of people who support each other in it. Just like AuthorTube, there's a lot of people who support each other in AuthorTube. And running a writing competition is a great way to give back to the writing community. You know, you are setting a challenge, and as authors, we love challenges, and it's great fun to do. And it's just, you know, it's a really nice community thing to do. So that is my number 1 reason for running a writing competition. The second reason, thinking of it as a business minded thing, is not that you will make a lot of money, because you won't, because you'll have to pay out prizes and stuff. We don't actually make any money from running our competition. We might make money from the sales of the books afterwards, but that's it. But no, the other reason I like to run writing competitions is to get our name of Clovis out there into the writing community. We're not gonna get any money from it particularly, but it's just being seen in the community, which is actually a really, really important thing as an author, as a publisher, to be out there. So those are my 2 reasons for running a writing competition. Yours could be different. The only thing I would say is you've got to have a good reason, because it is a lot of work. So I've got 2, one nice one, one business one. Okay, so the next thing the first thing really you should think about when you're thinking about running a competition is, what sort of prize are you going to give out? Now, when we first started our ghost story competitions, we worked it as a percentage of the money we got in. So I think first prize was something like 40%, maybe? Was it 30%? It was a decent 40%, yeah. It was 40% first prize. And we did that because we didn't know how many entries we would get. We didn't know how much money there'd be in the pot, and we didn't want to lose a lot of money running this competition, because we're a business, we can't do that. So so that is the number 1 thing I would think about, is what prize are you giving out? So we gave out percentages. This year, for the first time, we are giving out a set prize. And I believe it's £100 for first prize. So it's not, you know, it's not a huge amount, but it's a decent prize for a first prize story. So so yeah, that's the first thing I would think about. If you are setting a set prize, set first, second or third, say, do make sure that you have the money already. You don't want it to get to the deadline stage and you'd be panicking about where to find the prize money from. I recommend you start quite small and have a first prize of say £50 or £100 if you can manage it. But you don't know how many people are going to enter your competition. You don't know how many entry fees you're going to get. You've got to be sensible. I actually really liked doing it the percentage way because there was a bit of excitement. You know, we were working out every time we got a new submission, we'd work out the new top prize, and it was really exciting watching it go up and up and up. Even though we wouldn't be seeing any of that money, it was just nice to know that our first prize author would be getting that high amount. So that is one of the main things you need to think about. Another thing linked in that I've already mentioned is entry fees. Now, we work it as it's £3 per story for an adult story, but we also have a section for children writers as well, so they enter for free, because generally children don't have as much money. I would recommend setting an entry fee, but don't make it too much. You know, by setting one, you make sure that people who enter have really put in the time to do it. No one's going to enter a competition which they have to pay for and put in a rubbish story. You know, that's just going to be really daft. And the stories that I've seen from the competition have been really, really good. So it does work, you know, if you put a small entry fee on the competition. Likewise, though, don't make the entry fee too much because you're going to put off writers. Personally, I would not enter a writing competition that costs more than £10 per story. That is my limit. I know that's Virginia's limit as well, and I think it's a really, really good limit to have. Otherwise you'll see one that you really like and you'll be tempted to spend that £20 entry fee, and you may never see anything for it because there's a lot of people enter competitions. So personally, I would recommend you set a limit at £10 tops and don't go beyond that. Maybe when you've established a little bit more, maybe you can set it higher, but I wouldn't. We certainly wouldn't do that in Clovis. I quite like the £3 entry fee. It's just enough to make sure that people take it seriously, and it's cheap enough so that people can enter easily. So yeah, so that's a really, really important consideration to make. Another thing you need to think about is if you're doing a story competition, are you going to leave it open to anything? So are you going to say it could be any genre? Are you going to say this is specifically for fantasy stories? Are you going to say that it has to have a theme of like brotherhood or something? I don't know. I've seen so many competitions for a range of different types, very open ones to very, very set ones, and that is a matter of preference. Personally, I like to enter things that have quite a set theme because it's a challenge, and like I said earlier, writers do love a challenge. Our story competition is a ghost story competition because it's for Christmas and the deadline is around Halloween time. Well, it's a bit earlier actually, but you know, it's a nice time of year to tell ghost stories. So that is our sort of genre, sort of themes, sort of thing. I would recommend having a theme, or just a genre that you ask for stories in. And I would pick your favourite genre as well, because you may be ending up reading 150 of those stories. You have to make sure that you're going to enjoy it. Okay, so I would think about doing a theme. Okay, another thing is really, really important when you're setting up a writing competition is how are you going to promote it? So it's great having a writing competition open. It's a great feeling that you're giving something back, and it's exciting knowing that you're going to get stories, but you've got to make sure that people know it's out there. So how are you going to promote your writing competition? Now, I have a couple of things to recommend with this. The first one being social media. We have a Twitter page, we use Facebook sometimes. We get a lot of views on our competitions from that. Twitter is fantastic because it uses hashtags like writing community and other writing related hashtags, and people check those regularly, and if they like the idea of your competition, they'll click on it and see what they think. So I would recommend that you really plaster it over social media to make sure that you're getting as many people as possible. Something else is also competition websites. There are fantastic resources available for writers to look through to check for competitions that are coming up. Now, we have our Ghost Story competition listed on a couple of really great ones. Examples include Christopher Fielden. He's got a really good website that he lists all sorts of writing competitions. And here's one called Writer's Vein, and I think that's writers like authors and reign like the king or queen. So I would recommend you have a look at both of them and submit your competition to them because they're really great people to work with. There are many more. Just search it in Google. What I would search is writing competitions and see what comes up. Okay. Oh, also, of course, you've got local media with that as well. So if you're running a competition, then I bet your local newspaper or radio station will be interested to hear it. What happened to us the first year that we ran our competition was we were actually picked up by the Sunday Times, which was fantastic, and we were featured in their list of competitions to enter, which was amazing. So you never know, if you're going to put yourself out there in that way, you never know who's gonna pick it up. Okay, now the next thing I'm going on to, this is becoming quite a long video, but I didn't realise when I started planning how much there is involved in doing a writing competition. But I want to make it quite detailed, but maybe room for another video later on. So the next thing I would think about is how long are you running the competition for? Now, this is something that we've actually played around with a little bit. We've changed from year to year. We've kind of been experimenting to see what works best for us. And at the moment, we're finding if we launch the Ghost Story competition in May, and then the deadline is at the very end of September, that seems to be a really good length of time. I think that's about 4 months, is it? June, July, August, September, yeah. So about 4 to 5 months, and it's long enough for people to write a good story and edit it, and it's short enough for people to think, oh well, I'll enter that, or not to think, oh, I'll enter that later, and then forget about it. So it is a really good length of time. I would recommend about that 4 to 5 months mark, but play around with things, you know, see what works for you. You might find something different. So yes, so it's a really important consideration to make, how long you want to have your competition running for. Okay, now I will very briefly mention this one, length of story. Now we set our competition at the 4,000 word mark. We don't accept any stories over the 4,000 word mark. I know it's hard for a lot of authors, a lot of writers to keep to that word limit, but firstly, it's a challenge and it's good to stick to challenges. And secondly, we don't know how many stories we're going to have submitted. So if we don't set a word limit, then we might be reading something that's a bit like a novella and 100 of them, and we just won't have time to read through them all. So I do recommend setting a length. We found 4,000 as a really good length to stick to, but I've seen a lot of competitions that set it at 2,000. So if you know you won't have a lot of time for judging, I would go for that that cutoff as well instead. Now the last thing I'm going to talk about today, that's the clock. It's reminding me that I've gone on too long. I said to Virginia earlier that this was going to be a 10-minute video and it's already almost 15 minutes. So this is the last thing that I will talk about today, but there may be another writing competition video next week or something. But the last thing is really important, judging the competition. So you've set up the competition, you've promoted it. You've got fantastic entries. You've got lots and lots and lots of entries, and the submission date has closed. Now the next step is to judge the stories. Now this can be a really, really fun, exciting task, but it's also a really daunting one as well, because you're going to be left with a lot of fantastic stories and you have to narrow it down to the best ones. And that is not an easy task, believe you me. So there are a couple of options. Now, option number one is get an independent person to judge the competition, which has its merits. You know, you don't have to do all the painstaking decisions, but it's going to be really, really hard for you to find someone who will take the time to do that. I know a lot of people get really excited about the prospect of having someone famous judging their work, but in reality what happens is you have a panel of not famous judges taking out the short stories that they think are worthy and making some kind of long list or even a short list, and then passing it to the famous author to judge the final ones. Realistically, you are going to be ending up judging the stories yourself. Or if you have a team like we do, we have 4 judges, which works really, really nicely. So what we do, and I would recommend this to you as well if you have the people available, is you have 2 people who read every single submission. Now those 2 people have the very, very, very difficult job of creating a long list out of all the stories that were submitted. Now how they do that I'm not sure, because I've not actually been one of those judges. I've been the shortlist judge, I've been the first, second, third judge, but I've never been the one to read them all. But I think what they do is they read them all independently, they give it a mark, I think out of 100, and then they come together, they put their marks together, and then they discuss it. And it doesn't always work that the ones with the highest mark go through. You know, because sometimes the discussion will bring up problems, sometimes the discussion will show them that actually this story is a lot better than I first thought. So yeah, it's a really tricky first step, that. But once you've got all those submissions, you know, 100+ submissions, we usually get over 150, I think. We certainly did on our first one. All those submissions down to maybe 20, the task becomes a lot more manageable. Then those judges have done their job. They don't need to do anything else, because it goes to the next judge, who takes the 20 long listed stories and creates a short list of 10. So this judge, and I do know what this judge is like because this is me on a couple of occasions, has a really, really bad job as well, because they've been given 20 of the best stories, of the stories that the judges previously thought were worthy, and they have to narrow it down to 10 of the even better stories. It's a really, really tricky job, and a lot of it is, well, it's down to personal preference. Then the shortlist of 10 stories goes to the final judge, who takes the 10 stories and picks out the first, second and third story. That's a tricky job as well, but by that point for us, we know that all the 10 stories are going to be in the anthology. So as far as we're concerned, they've all got a prize. I can't remember if we gave medals out this year. I think that was it just children, or? No. No, we did. Oh yes, so we gave medals out to the people who were in the anthology as well. I would recommend doing that if you've got the cash available. It's a really nice thing to receive a medal. So that is our judging process. It is long, it is difficult, but we found it works for us. Now, if you are running a writing competition yourself, you might have to do all those processes yourself. It's going to be really, really tricky. So I recommend you give yourself a long time to do it. Say the submission date ends in September. We get the shortlist out in November. If you are doing it yourself, I certainly wouldn't do it before December. You know, give yourself that extra time. It will take time. You want to do it properly. You want to do it justice, because the writers have made a fantastic job of their stories. It's only polite that you do their stories justice and take the time to judge them. So I think that's about it. Yes, I think that's about it for running a writing competition. There is a lot involved, a lot more than I realised when I first started planning this video. It's taken 20 minutes to explain all this, and I'm sure I've missed out a lot of the stuff that we do. Things like making a video to promote it. What are you going to do with the entries after you finish? You know, we put them into an anthology. Are you going to do the same, or are you going to just give them a certificate, which is also really nice? Are you going to give medals, that sort of thing? There is so much to think about. So I might have to end up doing another video or a blog post about this as well. But I will leave it at that for now. Thank you for listening. And if you're interested in entering our ghost story competition, which is open right now, I will link our website below for you to take a look. Thanks and bye for now.